Alright, so we all like saving money, right? Especially us Chinese people. In fact, I'd even go as far to say I'm proud of my ability to save money. And when it comes to traveling, with all the fun you're having, it can get very expensive very fast. I've been around to quite a few countries as well, and in that time I learned many tips to save money. And most of the time you're going to find that accommodation will be the biggest part of your expenses. By accommodation, I mean stuff like hotels, hostels, or dormitories. It doesn't matter if you're already a budget traveler, some of these tips I think will still be helpful for you. Let's save you some money. So the first way is a really popular choice for many travelers on a budget. It's not an exaggeration when I say that you will pay a fraction of the price that you would have paid if you stayed at a hotel. The reason why hostels are so cheap is because the accommodation is shared with other people. So you're going to be sharing the same washroom, sharing the same room, sharing the same shower. The privacy of your sleeping area can depend on the hostel. So some of them have bunk beds, some of them will give you a small capsule. It really depends on how much you're willing to pay. And this is where you kind of have to draw the line for how much you're willing to pay for your comfort. Because for me, I'm totally okay with paying 10 times less if it means all I have to do is share the same washroom with someone. Because honestly, if you're a social person like me, then the fact that you have to share this accommodation with other people is actually a plus. Some of the coolest and friendliest people I've ever met have been at a hostel. Most of the people there are going to be there for the same reason, right? They came here to travel. So it's pretty normal to just introduce yourself and then within minutes have a temporary best friend. Even if you feel like you're more of an introvert, you don't really have to worry. No one's going to come and pressure you to talk to them. So if you're okay with sacrificing a bit of your comfort and a bit of your privacy to save a lot of money, then you should definitely consider staying at a hostel. So again, this option really depends on what type of person you are and what you're looking for when you travel. Like, I know a lot of people who say that they would never stay in a hostel no matter how cheap it was because they can't imagine sharing all your facilities and the same room with a lot of other people. And it's reasonable because for them, traveling is about being as comfortable as possible and enjoying their time. So they don't want to purposely put themselves in a situation where they might think that they don't enjoy it. For me, the way that I think about it is instead of spending $1,000 on a hotel, I'll spend $100 on a hostel instead. And that other $900 I can use to do some more expensive activities or something else. One thing to keep in mind is that although most people refer to it as a hostel, I've also seen places call it a guest house or a dormitory or something like that. There are dedicated apps for finding hostels, such as Hostel World, but usually most people just use any sort of booking site like Booking, Agoda, Expedia, anything like that, and look for shared accommodation. Alternatively, if you're really trying to save as much as you can just sort by price from lowest to highest. But you really need to be careful. If you do this, try to find a hostel that has good reviews. It's a pretty normal part of hostel culture for people who have had bad experiences in a place to leave a review on these apps so that they can warn other people to stay away. Let's move on to other tips that don't involve sharing your accommodation with other people though. Alright, so this next tip is especially useful for cities that have a really good public transportation system. It shouldn't be a surprise to you that if the area is super popular, naturally the prices are going to reflect that. But it's pretty disproportionately reflected. What I mean by that is if there was a popular area in a city, like let's say Shinjuku in Tokyo, right? If you were to just go a bit farther away, you'll find that hotels and hostels would be a lot cheaper. And this is why if transit is convenient and cheap, you should definitely consider this tip. Because for most of the attractions that you want to see when you travel, there isn't really a point in seeing them multiple times, right? So you only really need to get there one time. Because of that, I'm completely okay with staying a bit farther away from the popular attractions if it means that I can save a lot of money. You might be thinking that it could be annoying because now you have to spend more time and more money to get to the attraction because you purposely chose to stay somewhere farther away. But to me, the trade-off is just not worth it. So the trade-off is you're paying like what, like $2 for the metro, less than that usually, and 15 minutes of commute. And for cities that don't necessarily have good public transportation, like Jakarta, the one I'm staying at right now, if it's cheap to get a taxi, you can consider that too. I found that these two tips amount to the biggest amount of savings so far. The next tip is quite a big time investment. So in a way, it's just something you should be aware of as an option. Now, if you're planning to stay in a country for an extended period of time, like let's say over a month, you can consider looking into working at some of these accommodations, such as hotels or hostels. Because while you're not technically allowed to work on a tourist visa, you are allowed to volunteer. So some hotels and some hostels will allow you to volunteer your services for them, and in exchange they allow you to stay at the hotel or hostel for free. Usually you do some very light work, maybe for a couple of hours a day, and then you have the rest of the day free. This is a really powerful option if you're doing an extended stay in a country. At the time of this video being recorded, I believe the most popular app that people use to find this kind of opportunity is Worldpackers. Just to be clear, I'm not sponsored by any of these apps that I talk about in this video. I'm just going off of my own experience. If you're able to do an opportunity like this in a country that's already inexpensive to travel to, such as Indonesia, then your only expenses every day will be food and the occasional activity. In that sort of situation, you could get your daily expenses as low as even like $10. You should know though that if you want to do something like this, most of these hotels or hostels will only allow you to do it if you do it for at least 2 weeks usually. So you can really only consider this if you want to plan to stay in one area for a long time. And it's good for the type of people that like to travel slowly, not the type of people that like to hit as many cities, as many countries as they can in a short amount of time. Personally, I like slow travel. I've been away from Canada for almost a year now. If you do something like this, then a very typical schedule would be something like volunteering part-time for 5 days a week and then having the other 2 days off. This allows you plenty of time to do whatever you want in wherever you're staying. Just remember, if you do something like this, choose a place that you're interested in because you might be there for a while. The last tip I want to tell you guys about that I use a lot is related to planning during this trip, and it's something that most people don't really think about. Alright, so the whole reason why you would even need accommodation in the first place is because you need a place to sleep, right? So this tip is to integrate or combine your need of sleep with your transport. What I mean by that is, let's say you're in a country and you need to get from one city to another. One thing that I do a lot of the times is I take a night bus. Night buses are extremely cheap to book, and although they might not be as comfortable as a hotel bed, I find a lot more comfort knowing that I save so much money. In a similar vein, I also like to book flights so that they arrive in the morning at my destination so that I can sleep on the plane and a bit before my flight in my home country before I leave. This tip, like all the other tips, involves sacrificing some degree of comfort so that you can save a lot of money. Because naturally, hotels are meant to be tailored to your comfort. That's what makes them so expensive. For me, I'm willing to make these sacrifices of my comfort because it lets me use the money I have and make it last much longer than it would have otherwise. The thing I like about these tips is that it doesn't really matter if you're flying to the other side of the world or just to a nearby city. I was able to use these tips wherever I went, and it saved me a lot of money. Because again, accommodation is what usually makes up the biggest part of your expenses when you travel. In the future, I'll probably be at a stage in my life where I can comfortably spend maybe $500 a night on a hotel, but currently I'll be pulling out my hair if I spend that much on a hotel in one night. I hope this video was helpful for you because traveling is expensive, but let's not make it as expensive as it needs to be. Personally, I get a lot of satisfaction from being smart with my money. So I learned plenty of tips and tricks to save money on other areas of travel as well, such as food. If you are interested in more videos like this, then please do me a favor and subscribe. I post videos weekly and make all types of videos about travel. If you want me to go into more detail about these tips, then leave a comment below and I'll answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video was helpful for you. Have a good day.